We'll give it about just one more minute. But again, you should all be wearing your, I think, Alice, what we came up with yesterday was your participation shoes. We're going to be talking to each other. You're going to be answering questions on some design concepts. And yeah, it should be good. So we're going to go ahead and just get started helping shape the future of forms. Again, this is one of those areas of the product that we're all looking forward to sort of diving in and researching and starting to develop more solutions for. And yeah, so we're really looking forward to your help and your feedback. So I am joined today. Hi, I'm Ryan Murray. I'm a product manager at Quickbase, joined by our interaction designer, Jeff Shosey. Jeff.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
This is his second Empower. But I think
first time presenting.
Yeah, and I think your first Empower was like week 2 of Quickbase, right?
Yeah, I was a little lost.
Just a baby. Okay, cool. So yeah, so we work with engineers, with a few engineering teams, helping to sort of shepherd ideas and iterations of products through the funnel and actually get them out into customers' hands. So I like to say that Jeff has the coolest job in Quickbase. He just gets to come up with all these awesome designs and ways to do things. And yeah, and then we have to manage fun things like scope and stuff. So
it's only cool because I get to work with you, Ryan.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Great. So if you're just now joining, remember to pull up the Menti. This again is a great, or better consumed, I should say, is with 2 devices. So actually, hold on before I forget, because I want my vote to count here on all these things. I'm going to also open up Menti and vote along with you. Right. We'll leave this up for just a minute. And as we sort of progress and as we come through, we might have some stragglers. So chat moderators, if you could throw the Menti code in the chat every, like, I don't know, 90 seconds or so.
Yeah, the code will show up when we have questions on the screen later. So if you are
that also helps.
Be able to.
Cool. So I'll give this just one more minute. All right. Great. So you might all be sort of wondering what you signed up for. Again, this is a design workshop, so we're going to be showing some early concepts and sort of patterns that we are exploring as we start to gather requirements for what the next generation of forms look like. Really, the main reason that we wanted to do this was because we miss you. This is year 2 of Virtual Empower. And my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts of Empower, was being able to sort of talk to customers one-on-one in like as we sort of wandered through the exhibit hall. We used to have these big poster boards with designs and things we were thinking of and concepts and new ideas and how to solve problems in Quickbase, and we really miss it. So we wanted to try to rally that sort of feeling, that spirit again by hosting one of these design sessions. I did try to convince Jeff to wear a lab coat for this session, but I was shut down. Maybe next year when we're all together again, we can all wear our Quickbase Design Lab coats. Cool. Also, I think one other thing that we all signed up for here is fun. I really like this should be the most relaxing session that you attend at Empower. Again, this is all future looking, a lot of fun new concepts. But again, you're going to help us really define what you want to see out of a new form. So in simplest terms, we're going to be asking you a bunch of questions. You're going to be giving us answers. Halfway through, or maybe 3/4 of the way through, actually it's probably more like 80% of the way through, we're going to break out into smaller groups where we'll have more focused discussions on some of the concepts we've seen. We've got some questions prepared. So again, be prepared to talk to us. We've got a bunch of folks on our product and design teams helping to moderate. So yeah, it should be fun. Now, 3 principles here, probably don't need to say them. These should go unspoken, but just to really hammer them home. Number 1, just be respectful. A lot of different opinions in Quickbase. This is one of the best parts about our platform, just the diversity of backgrounds from technical perspectives, from walks of life that Quickbase sort of brings out. Also, don't be shy So make sure that you're, just willing to share your ideas. There's no right or wrong answer to any of these questions or any of the ones that we'll pose in smaller breakout sessions. So please participate. We, again, just want to hear from you. We want as much feedback as we can get before we really start embarking in the early design phases. This next slide, this is our standard sort of safe harbor slide. Just know there are a lot of different factors that we take into consideration as we start to develop products in Quickbase. Customer feedback is for sure one of them. But just because, we saw the #1 voted, topic or poll response here might not make its way into the product for a lot of different reasons. We try to evaluate, emerging trends in the market and technical feasibility and our technical roadmap overall as well. So discussions that we have today are really for research, figuring out, where we should focus our brain power. Cool. So here's the agenda. We just went over, we'll go over sort of the background of the Forms project and what we're looking to get out of it, how we plan to roll it out. We'll get into sort of our feedback sessions where we'll have, I think, a dozen or so Menti polls on different concepts and paths to sort of explore. Then we'll break out and you'll all come back in, help me do my job and prioritize all of the things that you saw about making sure that we're focused on the most important things. So. Now, for those who attended the UI session yesterday, the state of the UI, this isn't a new slide to you, but it is important, I think, to at least set, what our guiding principles are as we embark on a project as large as refreshing the Quickbase UI. #1 is to delight our customers, to provide a more delightful user experience. This isn't only for our builders, a more delightful building experience. We also want to make sure that your end users, the people that you build apps for, are also delighted. Again, we want to make sure that you can be confident in showing off the solutions that you're building in Quickbase. And to start, that presentation layer, that UI, is super important. So really strong driving principle for us. Another principle here is to accelerate. So we want to be able to build a strong foundation on which we can innovate upon. You saw that yesterday in the keynote when we started talking about how our table reports provided a foundation for timeline reports. We were able to release those much more quickly than we could have if we needed to build a timeline from scratch again. So again, another important principle that we're making sure that we can build these components to reuse in other areas of the product. That also sort of ties back to our first experience, or our first principle, to delight, by providing a really consistent user experience. So the way that you lay out forms should have similar patterns to how you're interacting with the dashboard, and how you look at the table report should, those principles, those interactions should carry over to timeline reports and other tabular data as well. Final principle here is to open. So to start the journey of making Quickbase accessible and international ready, and to really, again, lay the foundation for extending Quickbase, for allowing our partners, our customers, and our systems integrators to build on top of what we've developed. Cool. So I'd be remiss if we started this session without really talking about how forms are used today. And when I first started at Quickbase, and I'm sure a lot of our interaction designers and our sort of visual designers, when they hear forms in Quickbase, they're thinking something very similar to Google Forms or FormStack, where it's just data in, and then it's sort of logged into a database where you can report on after. But our Quickbase forms really aren't just forms. There are so many use cases for forms. Now, we do that really small slice of forms where I just need to get data into a database so I can report on it. We do that really well. Here's a good example of, I need to log my time in a Quickbase app so we can count hours against billable hours against projects. We can bill our clients. We do that really well. We also sort of expand and use forms in our sort of relational database muscle and engine by editing related data directly from sort of a parent record or another sort of disparate record in Quickbase. So being able to take action on multiple records while in a form experience is something really, really unique. And then this is a really heavily redacted screenshot of one of the applications that we use to help report on how our customers use Quickbase. But this, again, really isn't a form. In fact, as someone who helped to build this form in Quickbase, a user would never, ever do any data entry on this form. It's more of a data visualization tool. So we could get sort of a 360-degree view of how our customers are engaged with our customer support team and our sales force, and how many surveys they filled out, et cetera. So really a wide array of use cases for us to sort of digest and think about as we're starting this journey. Now, we do have sort of a plan for how we're going to roll out. Again, we're early on in the design phase, so a lot of this could change as we learn more information. But our plan right now is to start with a really small slice of forms and then deliver value incrementally. So right now, what Jeff and I are talking about, 2 or 3 times a week is really like, what's that first initial slice where one of our customers could find value and start using a new form sort of in their day-to-day? What does that look like? Then once we have that slice, we have a really good starting point on which to build and then iterate upon. So again, one thing, and you heard this yesterday during the State of the UI session, what we don't want to do is go away for years at a time, develop in sort of the back cave, come out with, hey, here's a form, and realize like, oh, it doesn't do half the things that we want or that our customers want, because we didn't get that feedback and we weren't able to sort of increment and develop sort of in time. Also, again, one of the patterns that we're for the UI refresh forms are going to be, sort of you'll build it again from scratch. You won't have a new toggle like you do on the timeline or on the table reports or soon on new charts on our standalone pages. And then we do plan to run small focused beta programs with our customers, our partners, again, to get feedback, figure out what's going well, what it's missing, again, to help inform the priority of how we sort of start to attack, what we sort of internally call Goliath, which is our forms. Now, this is the fun part. And these questions, I do promise this is the most you're going to have to think during this session. These are all open-ended questions, so we'll be asking for a phrase or two on, and I don't want to spoil the questions, but a phrase or two just on forms. Everything from here on out is multiple choice, so I will need like your brain power now. I'm glad we're doing this on day 2 instead of day 3 when everyone's like exhausted and has Quickbase information overload. But I think now I'll flip it over to Jeff, or I'll toss it to Jeff. So start looking at these questions.
All right, you seeing that same slide?
I see that same.
All right, great. So Ryan, I think just because the way Menti is set up, some of these folks got a head start on question 1, but let's show it.
All right. One thing that you find special about Quickbase forms that you hope never changes.
It can all change.
Yeah. We're hearing a lot of form rules. I'm guessing somebody who says it can all change thinks that there's a lot we can do to improve our form experience. Agree. Embedded reports. Yeah, that sort of detail level data that you'll get, while you're viewing a parent record to see how your records are related. Being able to set up for each user or group individually. Yeah, that role-based access is something that we were able to get right with dashboards, right? So being able to integrate that with the applications. Again, another pattern that we've already developed that we hope to innovate upon and then accelerate. I love.
I saw nothing and a not much. Don't worry. The question for complaining is coming up next.
Yes. Oh, hold on. Let me just get my answer.
Another minute.
Yeah, I just want to get mine in.
Ryan, we meet like every 2 days.
I know, but it's important. It's important.
Tabs. People love tabs.
It's a great way to, sort of condense what could be like a really information dense, like viewing experience, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've seen forms with like hundreds or like up to like thousands of elements on them, right? And if that's just in one long sort of never-ending story or never-ending scroll, it's gonna be hard to sort of consume that. So tabs are a great way to sort of split that up. And we have some interesting ideas for how we can sort of break up data, make it more consumable that we'll share in a bit.
All right, let's move on, shall we?
I think we have enough. This is the last call. I would say.
Next question. Cool. Next question. Here we go. What is one thing about Quickbase forms that makes you sad?
Can I just say it? No, I won't say it. I don't want to lead the witness.
You don't get a vote, Ryan.
I should get one vote. I'm going to put mine in.
All right, you get one vote. No drag and drop. JavaScript is going away. Wasted space. They're ugly. Oh no.
Yeah. I wouldn't say they're ugly. They leave a lot to be desired. You can make really beautiful forms with Quickbase, and we've seen it. Like I've seen one of the coolest things about you know, how we work at Quickbase and how we sort of gather feedback from end users is we do get to see all of the implementations. Like as we talk to customers, one thing that I think everybody likes to do is sort of share what they've built in Quickbase. Everyone likes to brag about their own apps. So we've seen some really, really cool implementations of forms.
Old UI.
Yeah, this is, we want to modernize it.
That's why we're refreshing people. That's why we're here. Rules UI is clunky.
Only one version for view, edit, and add. Could be
interesting.
Some conditional form logic to show a specific form when.
No multi-step forms. The way you have to design them.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, that I've been at Quickbase for 6 years and I still find myself like tripping over laying out elements on the form just because, you know, nowhere else in the product do you sort of lay out elements,
Editing,
you know, sort of an inline fashion, like vertically.
I think a lot of people are going to have fun once we get to the next part of this presentation.
Yes.
Shall we move on to the next?
I think so. I think we got a lot. This is great.
Awesome.
Last question that we
Super
have
helpful.
to really use our brains for, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. This one, yeah, this is a tough one. But what is one thing that we could add to Quickbase forms that would be a total game changer for you? Total game changer. Yeah. These are the hard questions.
And this is the last essay question of the day.
Yes. Well, I think it's not an essay, right? We keep it like it's under a tweet.
Text question.
One last.
Styling, drag and drop, subforms, flexibility and design.
Embedding forms on forms. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Embedding code pages in forms. Yep.
Multi-step, please. Oh, look at that sad emoji. Oh my.
Yeah.
We have to do that now, Ryan.
I think so. They're appealing to our.
There's puppy dog eyes. That's how you get things done around here.
What emoji kit is that? And why don't we use that? I feel like we could get a lot more done if I was able to persuade people with sad eyes all the time.
Styling capabilities. Oh, forms appear when they print. Okay.
Yep. So sharing, like creating sort of artifacts of the data that you have in Quickbase.
Branding.
Customized branding. Awesome. Better editing capabilities for child records. So yeah, the grid edit again leaves a lot to be desired. We're gonna be looking at that as we. Alice is very familiar with the woes of our grid edit capabilities and how we have ideas to improve those.
All right, watching the time. I think we have to.
Okay, yeah. We do have to be time conscious.
All right.
Yes, thank you. Although I could watch these cards just.
This is fascinating. I've never collected user feedback so fast. This is wonderful as a UX person. All right.
Great.
Thank you for answering those questions. I think you can keep answering that last one until we get to the next one. Yep. So awesome. Now we have a sense of where your heads are. Let's talk about where our heads are. And now we're gonna go into, I'm gonna show you some things that we're working on, that we're thinking about, and it's broken down into 6 polls. We're gonna have 2 about the framework, which is kind of how you put things together, where you put things together, I should say, and then 3 questions kind of about what goes into that framework, and then 1 slightly longer question about kind of some things we can do to improve workflow. Let's just get right into it. So the first question is, well, we're gonna make a new form system. So how do you put it on something? And we use something we're calling the canvas. Dashboards have a canvas. That's sort of the empty space you put things on. So what is the canvas for forms going to look like? That's sort of square one. There's a few ways we could do it. There's a lot of ways we could do it, really. So I'm going to show you 3 possibilities, and then we're going to have like a vote where you pick your favorite, basically. So this is the first option. This is grid layout. This is sort of taking the way that dashboards works and kind of directly translating it to forms. You have a grid of cells and you can put things in those cells. A lot of people said something about drag and drop. Absolutely something we are very seriously considering. And here's an example of taking a button and trying to put it or putting it on the grid. You just sort of drag it to an existing cell, maybe resize the cells, that sort of thing. Another concept is something I'm just calling simple column layout. And in this UI, you simply pick the column layout you want. Maybe it's just one column, maybe it's 2, 3, maybe the left one's skinny, maybe the right one's skinny. You just set up your columns in advance and you put things into those columns. The third concept is something a little, oh, sorry, I always forget. There it is. There's me dragging something in and it shows where it's going to drop. And you just put it down in the column you want between the things you want to put it between. The third option is hard to explain in words, but easy to see visually. This is what we call dynamic layout. And this is going to be a little video from a different app. It's an app called Notion, which is sort of like a note-taking wiki type app. And they do something really cool. And watch how this works. So the way this works is you can create columns on the fly, create and delete columns on the fly by just sort of dragging something to the right or between things. And as you put things in columns and move things out of columns, you can see that when that middle column is no longer needed, it just goes away. I really wanted to do a lime in the coconut joke, but there is no lime emoji, although there is a coconut emoji. But that's dynamic layout. And here is how that might look in a Quickbase editor. It doesn't look like much special here, but if I were to drag a button over, you can see, in this version, I might be able to make a new column just by putting a button to the right of everything else. All right, so now we are going to take a vote. And as I promised, this is just a multiple choice. And if I flip over here, what do you think makes the most sense for you? All right, we've got some simple, we got dynamic and the strong lead. Almost 3/4. Although grid layout has a lot of proponents. Interesting. I think those are dashboard fans, Ryan.
There's a lot of them.
I think we have 100 people in the room, so I can kind of eyeball the number to make sure enough people have
that quickly.
Voted. On this chart, I can. The more complex ones, I might have trouble, but about 65-ish.
Wow.
Don't want to disenfranchise people, but we do need to move on. And I think this is going to maintain the proportions that we're seeing. So cool. Thanks for voting on that. And there are more to come. The next thing I want to talk about is piecing it together. So you saw in the earlier mock-ups that we have this toolbox on the side. Again, something we're very seriously considering. It is what people might expect from modern UI. The question is, though, is there another way to do this that is also modern and interesting? So here is a demonstration, which are actually straight from the other slides, of dragging and dropping things from a text toolbox onto a form. Another way that you can do this that I have seen in apps like Notion is instead of picking the thing you want and saying where to put it, you pick where you want to put something. You click, it shows a sort of placeholder button and says add here, and then you click that, and then you can pick what you want to put there. And one thing that's neat about this UI is that you could attach that to a search. So if we had, 5 years from now, we have forms that support 50 kinds of controls and third-party embeds and all that kind of stuff. You could just type, I want a map, and it could say, oh, I want Google Maps, I want Yahoo Maps, whatever you use for maps. And maybe like you can search through a bunch of controls. So we're gonna have another multiple choice, except in this one, I'm gonna let you say that you really want both. So if you gotta have both, go ahead and click that. However, If you do feel more strongly about one than the other, that will help us prioritize if you can pick one or the other. But we do want to know if you do really got to have both, and got to have both. Got to have both. Got to have both is strong lead right now. Ryan, how do you feel about that as a product manager?
Speechless. No, I mean, it's obviously we all want all the things all the time. It's a matter of how do we do it in a way that one, we can scale, and two, gives or sort of brings the most value, the most interaction first. I'm actually a fan of add here for a lot of reasons. One is it could get tedious if you have a really, really tall form to sort of drag an element all the way up. But dragging and to sort of lay out widgets or form elements in this case are really nice, delightful interaction. So
yeah, and it is good. It's good seeing those. Interesting seeing those neck and neck. I think I sold add here pretty well. Yeah, so that, and it's slight in the slight lead actually.
Yeah, and I mean,
So
there are pros and cons to both approaches, right?
Yeah.
And for us, it's about finding the best path forward first.
All right. Well, this chart has stabilized. We're going to move on to the next question.
Awesome.
Whoops. So we're going to talk about what actually goes into this canvas. The first thing we're going to talk about is kind of more of how do you think about forms, which is what you saw in all those previous mockups. You saw a toolbox of things that said like button, checkbox, select, etc. But that's not how things work in Quickbase now. And what is interesting about making a form designer in Quickbase is it's not like Google Forms, and it's not like Form Stack where you say, you're starting from scratch and you say, I'm going to make a form and it's just going to sort of make a database on the go, like as you pick options. Like we have the fields there, we have the field types. So this is kind of more of a question, like how do you think about forms? If you're building a form, do you think about, I need a select field here, and then you pick the field that's attached to, or do you think more about, I need to have someone pick, say, a manager or department, etc., and then you worry about how the UI works. So this should be hopefully quick vote, just one or the other. Like how do you think about? Whoa, I'm going crazy with the clicking. Sorry. There we go. What do you think about first when you're adding to a form?
I feel like this is going to be the one that runs away from us.
I think we have some Quickbase users here. Yeah.
It's funny, Jeff. I mean, when we were talking like earlier, when we were like starting to sort of gather all the requirements and talk about how forms are used out in the wild, like this was a really hard concept for sort of you to get like behind.
Yeah.
adding fields to the form versus sort of element controls.
Right. Yeah. I think we have a runaway winner here, and
I think we can close the poll.
We'll move on.
Cool.
All right, let's talk about styling. So a lot of feedback early on about styling. So let's talk about what you want to do when you're styling these fields, styling the form. And here are just some options about how you could apply some finesse, if you will, to the different form fields. Maybe you just want to make a different label color. Maybe you have a font that you love. Please don't use Comic Sans. As a designer, I beg of you, please don't do that. Maybe you want to have huge text fields. Maybe you just have a few questions on a form and people are doing it on a tablet. Maybe you want them to be nice and big. Maybe you want to put a background color behind something that's important. I'm calling that the field background color here. Maybe you want to color inside the input, the actual box that you type in, we call the input. Maybe you want to color that. Maybe you want to put a box around a collection of things and put a color behind that. And that's what we're calling a section background color here. So what we're going to do is going to have the poll. It's going to ask you which of these are important to you. Obviously, it wouldn't hurt for you to have all of them, but which ones like really are going to make your life better and help you do what you want to do. So let's take a vote on this. What of those options are important to you? I think this one takes a while to collect data before it shows stuff. So I think things are coming in, Menti just takes a minute. There we go. I love how Menti does this chart. It's so cool. With those waves that show the distribution. Section back, field and label background color, text size.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we find, like when talking to users, is how important color is when you're building apps to either denote sort of value or meaning, or to draw users' attention. So yeah, it's something that we want to think really, really carefully about, like how we implement that. We also want to make sure that it's accessible for users who can't see color, right? So a lot to sort of take in when we think about how color can be applied to other Quickbase elements.
Yeah, that's always a challenge for us. We want to give you a lot of flexibility, but we also want to try to ensure an accessible, clean experience for your end users. But this is actually kind of what I expected. I'm glad font wasn't a runaway hit, because if of any of these, I think that's maybe not our top priority, to be honest. But cool. All right, 2 more of these polls, and then we will go into the breakout sessions. The next, I keep forgetting to do that slide before we vote. All right, now this is something I'm calling a hot button topic. A lot of opinions about this, about the save button. One of the parts of your form is the save button. That's a very important piece. Without that, you wouldn't be able to submit anything. So the question is, where do you want that save button? The traditional version is on the bottom. You get to the bottom of the form, you hit save. Another way that is done on a lot of data heavy forms is you kind of have it on the top right. Maybe you want it on both. And in the one where I have top and bottom, this is showing that maybe the top one is fixed so that it's always there and you can hit save anytime. But we still keep one at the bottom if you're, I don't know, a traditionalist and want to hit it when you're at the end. And another option that we're thinking of is maybe you put it wherever you want it. Maybe we treat it like any other form element and you can drag it around. So another multiple choice. What do you think? What do you think makes the most sense? And I'm going to actually go to the vote slide and switch to the voting. Where does that save button belong? What do we got? Wherever you want it.
It's the beauty of Quickbase, right? Building those sort of custom solutions to fit whatever process you're trying to build and sort of appify. But
the top and bottom combo is doing well there. Yep. At the bottom is losing the most traditional option. Okay, it's at least tied with the top now. I think the proponents just want both. Be interesting to see the people who voted top and bottom, which one they'd be more likely to click. But interesting. Yeah, wherever I want it, and then top and bottom.
Top and bottom, something you can find in Quickbase today, right? Like we all have the option on our forms to turn off certain. I think you can turn off showing save buttons at the bottom. I personally like the flexibility of being able to put that wherever you want on a form, because sometimes it makes sense to be right in the middle, right?
Yeah, sometimes you might have required fields and then like a ton of optional stuff, and maybe you want to let people hit that button without digging into the optional stuff. But I think we have a quorum, and we have one more poll. This one is going to involve a lot of mock-ups and a lot of ideas, and this is kind of a collection of things that we are considering to improve your workflow. Awesome. So one thing that we're considering that I think we saw in the early feedback phase of this session was the ability to do branching logic. So, you can do a lot of stuff with form rules, but it's not necessarily easy. So this is something that we're thinking of to do kind of built in without using a lot of form rules. And the idea is you have a form, you have a field where you pick something, and then based on what you pick, the form goes to one different type of the form or another. Here's a kind of a classic version of a feedback form where you pick the type of feedback, and then based on what you pick, we switch to showing you the appropriate form for that. Another thing that we've heard a lot of interest in, which is probably a little more unique to something like Quickbase, I haven't seen this in many forms tools, is what we call conditional forms. So conditional forms is showing an entirely different form based on something about the data. So in this example, this is like a construction company, and depending on what type of project it is, which is, some field on the project table, we'll show you a different form where you collect different data. So, you could break your forms down in different ways. So you don't have a million rules. You could have one form for this type and one form for that type. Conditional forms.
And this is, I just want to chime in, this is different from, a dynamic form rule that would show or hide, a particular section based on conditions. This would be, based on a value in this field, show me a completely different form. Benefits for this would be really much easier to maintain than, compiling a list of form rules and, dealing with those conflicts of trying to show and hide sections and get those fun warnings. So a little more easier way to maintain sort of complex business processes.
Yep. The next thing, and I definitely saw this mentioned in the essay questions, paged forms. You've seen these all over the place. So, the idea of breaking down a form into multiple steps that you answer in order. Classic example is an e-commerce site where one page you're picking your shipping information, then you're picking your building information, and you kind of go step by step. Maybe you can go back, maybe you can't, details, but the idea of breaking a form down into multiple discrete steps that you show one at a time, paged forms. Here's something, I couldn't come up with a pithy name for it, but it's a pretty simple concept. And this is what we're calling multiple field control options. And this is just the idea that once you say, all right, I want to put this field on the form, we can give you multiple ways to present that, which is certainly something I think we're bound to do at some point. But again, this is about kind of prioritization and thinking what's important right now. So in this example, you have a task status that has one of three options. We could give you the ability to say, I want this in a drop down, I want this as radio buttons, or in that bottom example, that's what's called a segmented control, where it's like a radio button, except you actually click on the words, and it's kind of better on mobile. It's more visual. I could go on and on about the usability pros and cons of all of these, but the question is, should we prioritize giving you different ways to enter data into a form for a certain field type? One more, I think, and this is customizing save buttons. We talked about save buttons earlier. How flexible do you want these to be? All right, like, maybe you want the save button to have a different verb on it that explains exactly what's going to happen, like process request. Maybe you want a red button because you're doing something that might be drastic. Maybe you want a big honking purple button to make people feel like they're doing something powerful. I mean, who doesn't want that? Or maybe you want to change the button to represent a step in a workflow. So submit for review, it's green. That'll help you understand better what's going on. Customizable save buttons. All right, so this is kind of like the previous one where you get to pick multiples. And we're going to rate this from not important to very important. So which of these are going to be the most important to you? Customizable save buttons jumps out in the lead. All right, let's see.
It's a little bit like a horse race, right?
It is.
I feel like we need to call it like the Kentucky Derby.
Branching logic, conditional forms.
Yeah, this is great.
Interesting. Conditional forms.
How tight like the average spread is, right? Like,
yeah,
everyone finds all of these things important.
Yeah, conditional forms, that's really interesting. Like that's something I wouldn't have even really thought of until I got acquainted with Quickbase and how people do things in Quickbase. That's a really going to be a fun design challenge for me. But that's clearly important, and I mean, everything's important.
Now, since these are all important, I'm sure like people might throw 5s on all of them. Probably should have made this a ranking question. Made it
Oh, Ryan,
a
let's
little more challenging.
we'll talk a little bit more about ranking at the end of this meeting when we really strain people's brains. But I think we're right on time for the breakout session phase of, okay, the breakout session. So we wanted people to have the opportunity to speak up, but we had so many people here that we wanted to sort of break you into smaller rooms so that you can have more of an opportunity to speak up rather than have 100 people trying to talk all at once. And I believe our facilitator is going to make some rooms now.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So the rooms are ready and I'm ready to send everybody, and I've got them for about 10 minutes. So get ready, everybody. Here we go.
Oh, here they come.
Yay. Oh my gosh, everyone's coming back all at once. Great.
This is like that scene in Endgame where everyone comes through the portal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're all going to go and vanquish our form.
Big Marvel nerd. All right, we're back. We have a few minutes, but we got to do this. So Ryan, let's get straight into it. I'm gonna share my desktop. Okay. Whoops. All right, Ryan, why don't you talk about what we're about to do?
All right. So that's okay. This is the most fun thing, I think, because you guys kind of get to put my shoes on for a second and try to prioritize all of the things that we just talked about. It's so easy to want to do everything. And as like a true Quickbase nerd in my bones, I also want to do everything. But we have to make hard decisions all the time and choose how we sequence this out. So here's how this exercise is going to work. Everybody gets 100 points. We're going to call them quick bucks. And you're going to take your quick bucks and you're going to allocate them to the different features that you saw today, the different concepts or sort of layout. So we're going to actually walk through each one of these. And I spent a lot of time on this build slide. You can notice that animation. You get a lot of hard work. This is where sort of the sausage gets made. But cool. Right. Jeff, do you want to run through these?
Yeah, I'll run through these real quick. So most of these you've seen, a couple you haven't, but you should be familiar with them. So the first one, form field styling, just the general ability to make your forms look interesting. The second one is branching logic. You pick something on a form and then the form changes. The third one is conditional forms. Again, this is showing a completely different form based on some data in your record. Paged forms. This is breaking a form into multiple discrete steps. Multiple field control options. How important is it to have multiple ways to collect information on a field? Customizable save buttons. You know what those are. And these are a few that we didn't really talk about, but we could have. Custom tab placement. You know, maybe you want tabs just in one section of the form. I think a lot of you want that based on what I saw. Like basically, let's say like support for tabs within a form. Embedded forms, something we've talked about a lot internally. You make a form, you want to put it on a dashboard or maybe somewhere else. Here's an example of possibly having a form inside your dashboard. And then the last one is presentation form rules, which, as you can imagine, we're going to support this. But again, this is about prioritization. We're building a whole new thing from scratch. How important is it to support the ability to hide and show and that sort of thing, fields based on something you do? Okay, we ready?
I'm ready.
This is like the craziest thing Menti supports. So hopefully the UI is not too confusing. There is a submit button at the bottom, so you have to hit that after you allocate your points. I believe there's like a +10 button, -10 button, or you can type in exactly how many points you want. This is a ton of data points, which is really fascinating from a UX research perspective. I can't wait to see this chart start moving.
I'm out of points, Jeff.
You're out of points?
I got halfway down the list. I ran out.
Yeah. Ryan, it's in your best interest to assign 0 points to everything.
That's
so
not though, Jeff. That's really not. Oh, gosh.
Come on, Menti. Come on.
I feel like just people are thinking.
That's good. We want you to think. And this is the very last thing we're doing here today besides saying goodbye. And thank you.
Say again, what are the presentation form rules?
Oh, that's a great question, Mabel. So it's like your normal conditional form rules. So based on, value in your status field, you want to show another field or hide another field, show a section, hide a section. Something that, again, like Jeff mentioned, we're definitely going to do, but it's a matter of prioritization and when we start to do that work.
How does
I'm
that
sorry,
differ
how-
from the
how-
existing form rules?
Yeah, how do they differ from the existing ones?
They don't. Nope.
They
nothing-
don't.
nothing
It's
special.
found, but
Something
it's
very
not-
similar to how our existing form rules work. Yep.
it's foundational. You need that.
Yep.
You
One
don't
quick
have
que-
that.
One question on the save buttons.
Yep.
You put in where you want to direct the user to on the customizable save button?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
About a
Yeah,
del-
you could
what about a
include that in
delay?
there. A delay.
Refresh
That's
delay.
good.
Pipelines are constantly outrunning my
We
save
need more
and
than
redirect.
100.
Yes, please.
Can we get more?
No, you cannot get more points.
No more points. This is the fun part.
There's only
It
9, so you
It's
can do.
hard.
It is really hard. Yeah.
Ryan, what did you say was one of the goals of this meeting?
I want some empathy.
Right.
A little empathy for having to make these tough decisions.
What was there an answer on the delay on adding to the save customize save button? Adding a delay?
I think you could include that in that category.
Okay.
I gotta change it.
Spending a lot of time on this. I know we're supposed to end at 3:30, but I'm willing to stay here until.
Well, the Menti will stay up for a while, so
Okay, good.
hopefully stuff's going to come in. So even if you leave the meeting, keep working on that Menti poll.
Yeah, I submitted a while ago.
Yeah, same.
Really?
Oh,
I did
no.
as well.
I did too.
I
No.
did
see.
too.
You have to refresh.
Same.
Hope it's
no.
working.
Me 5.
Well, I think this number seems to say that people are voting. Maybe it's just doing some really hard number crunching. I know you're probably dying to see the results. I am.
I cannot contain my excitement.
Do something.
Come on.
Well, that's a bummer. Wow, anticlimactic. Thank you, Mentimeter. We'll you know what, we'll get these results. We'll put them in the Slack. At the very least, once we have something visual, we'll make sure you get access to where this ends up. Strange.
Yeah.
Strange that it's not.
Potentially go from one slide to back to this one, Jeff? Maybe
Oh,
that-
would it reset all the votes though, Lisa? That's my biggest fear.
I doubt it.
Eh,
think so.
Okay.
I like to
It'll-
live on the edge, but
Ah,
all right. Well, if I try that, it'll show a message on everyone's phone saying the presenter has changed the slide, but just ignore that and let's see if it works. Let's try this theory. Oh my gosh.
Oh, cool.
Lisa,
All
you're a
right, there they
genius.
yes.
Lisa wins.
Nice.
wow. It is
Conditional
way closer.
forms.
It is way closer than I thought it would be.
This is
That's
cool.
awesome. This is really cool. Well, if you voted, feel free to pop off if you need to, but I'm going to stay here until I see like 109 responses or however many people were in the meeting. But
And again, you can keep voting after the meeting ends.
tell your
Wait till I
friends.
close this
Send-
webpage.
Send them the link.
Right? Do you want to use your official? Do you want to use your official goodbye
Yes,
slides?
I do want to use my official goodbye slides.
All right.
Uh,
Oh, this is important. Go
Yep.
for it.
I'm going to try my best not to cry because this was the most fun I've had at like almost any Empower. A lot of different ways to stay informed about how we're going to sort of roll this out. Make sure you've registered to participate in beta programs. I'm sure like almost all of you are, but in case you haven't, quickbase.com/early access. Our release notes will have information on beta opportunities as they come available or as they become available, and make sure to share feedback on user voice. That is the best way to sort of let us know what is working, what isn't working, and what you want to see changed. So you'll probably see those who have voted on like larger user voice posts in the past, you'll probably see some activity on that in the coming weeks as we start to like collapse and make more sort of consolidate all of those requests. But yeah, it sounds cheesy, but we really do read every piece of feedback that you submit about Quickbase. And we don't take any of it personally. So I think that's where we'll leave it off. Jeff, are there more slides or is this the last?
Just
There
thank
is
you.
one. Thank you. Thank you all for coming and for hanging out with us for an hour. I hope you had fun. Remember, that was our primary goal. Secondary goal was to see some cool form stuff that we're thinking about. But yeah, thank you all for joining, and we'll see you like probably next year at Empower when we can all like hang out together, which will be great. So
Great.
Thank you.
yep, thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Bye.